Welcome to Dropping In, a podcast of storytelling and interviews with your host, Winter Olympian Mercedes Nicoll.
Thank you so much for dropping in today. If you are watching this episode, then you will see my beautiful guest next to me today. This is series 13, where I am talking about athlete injuries, recovery, as well as wellness and the journey that it takes to get there. Let me introduce you to today's guest that we will be dropping in with. And today is Sunday, September 29th, 2024. This guest is an athlete through and through. You'll find her downhill skiing in Whistler and on the water kite surfing around the world. She's gained international recognition in both sports and musculoskeletal therapy, physiotherapy. Did I say that right?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, perfect.
MSK.
I kind of like having you right here. Sometimes I do it with the people away from me. She was a physiotherapist for the Australian Winter Olympic team at 3 Winter Olympics, 2010, 2006, and 2002. She's been part of the Back in Action physiotherapy team of physiotherapists to Canada Ski Cross for the past 14 years, as well as forming an allegiance with Canada Sport Institute. And they are the physiotherapists of several winter sports development and national teams, including snowboarding, thank you, luge, bobsled, and cross-country skiing. She is a guru in health and injury prevention and loves working with various physicians and surgeons to rehabilitate clients. Now, complex neck and back issues, I know a thing or two about, but she knows a lot more because that is her specialty. I'm excited to drop in with this friend, athlete, entrepreneur, Olympic physiotherapist, Bianca Matheson. How are you?
Good, thanks.
Did I get all that? Like, you've done a lot, and I feel like I didn't even touch on everything.
Yeah, it's funny because I don't think I've done that much, but
no, we were just talking.
I guess you just roll with it, you know.
So good. Okay, we're gonna start with the never rapid fire. Are you ready to drop in?
Sure.
Okay. This one's really easy, unless you didn't do it today. But what did you have for breakfast this morning?
Oh, well, actually, it's a good morning because I was in Victoria. Yes, I just flew back on Harbour Air, visiting my partner's parents, and and we had like breakfast with them. So it was actually eggs and sausages. Yes. In Victoria, and then we flew the most gorgeous flight because it was sunny over Vancouver, the Gulf Islands, and then right up the Sea to Sky. And there's new snow out there too.
That's a special flight. I love that.
Yeah, it was -7.
So you flew into Nicholas North?
Yeah.
What time did you
all the way to Green Lake? 9:45 out of Victoria, 10:45 landed in Green Lake. It's an hour.
You might have seen us playing golf this morning.
Oh, we did see people playing golf.
Yeah, that would have been me.
Oh, there you go. You were below me. We were in one of those planes landing.
That's hilarious. Okay. Well, it's funny because I just had Chris Spring on.
And
he's a pilot now.
Oh, that's amazing. He's from Darwin in Australia. Who from Darwin goes to be an Olympic bobsledder?
4-time Olympic bobsledder.
Chris, yes.
Yeah, he is fascinating.
Yeah.
Okay, number 3. What's your favorite body part to treat?
That's a hard one because, well, I really enjoy feet.
That's so random.
I know, but they're big. They're big in snowboarding, skiing, and in triathletes, which are the other group that I have actually worked quite a bit with at the elite level. But yeah, they're just so interesting because there's 36 bones in the foot and the dynamics and little structure of everything going on, and they're your connection to the ground.
Yeah,
and your biomechanics kind of extend up the train. Really, the whole anatomy train runs from the feet. Yeah. But
I feel like if there's something
shoulders,
wrong with your
knees,
foot, then it
backs.
messes up your whole body, right?
It does. Yeah, it does. It screws up your whole biomechanics.
That's a really good answer. Okay, next question. Coffee before or after a workout?
Oh.
This is from ChatGPT.
Really?
Yeah.
I would say before because the caffeine gives you energy.
Yeah. Do you like coffee?
Yeah.
Coffee drinker?
Yeah. I'm a snob though. Like,
oh, you need the you have a special machine at home?
The beans cut. Yeah. And my husband's even worse. Like the beans have to be roasted in the last couple of weeks. You know, they're not allowed to be too, and this and that. And the machine has to be cleaned. And
Do you bring, like, if
He
you're
even
traveling?
brought a hand presso to Australia.
Yeah,
Every Australians are worse. I mean, I am an Australian. I think
Yeah.
it's partly why I'm a coffee snob, but he is worse, and he's Canadian.
That's so
My dad thought he was the biggest crazy dude on earth when he arrived with this coffee hand presso thing, like a bicycle pump.
Oh my gosh.
You pump it up to a pressure of 18 bar, and then it releases this perfect espresso shot with crema on top.
Things I don't know anything
I
about.
know. But Dad's like, there's a coffee shop around the corner and one across the road. And
we have coffee here. It's going to be okay.
Yeah,
That's hilarious. Okay. I'm excited for you to answer this question because I know you love sports, but what's one sport you can't live without?
Oh, water sports for sure, I would think. Yeah. The water.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, the mountains lured me here, but the water, I think, is in my soul.
Yeah, that's totally fair. Okay. If you could do any other job for a day, what would it be?
Ooh, an astronaut.
Oh, bold.
Yeah. Can you imagine that?
Interesting.
Seeing Earth from space?
I really like that answer. I don't know what I would have answered. Okay.
I've always said that I'd be an architect if I wasn't a physio or
Oh,
you
yeah?
know, yeah. And I dreamed as a kid of being a oceanographer or a marine biologist.
I
but
thought I was going to be a marine
I
biologist.
think everyone goes through the marine biology stage.
Why is it because we always like have to like do some kind of sea animal that you're
Yeah.
researching at a certain time?
Maybe,
You're like,
yeah.
marine biologist,
Yeah.
done.
Yeah. Don't be a jellyfish.
I
Have a backbone.
I did dolphins. Well, that was my
dolphins,
thing.
yeah.
Okay, what's your
dolphins.
favorite way to
Penguins.
unwind after a long day?
I live on Alta Lake. I love to just hang on our dock and kind of paddleboard or
That is a special
stretch, do some yoga.
That's a special area there for sure.
Yeah.
You pretty much go home when you're unwinding
Yeah.
because it's so chill.
Yeah, chilling at home.
What's one health myth that you wish would disappear?
Health myth. That's a hard one.
I think that's a hard one too. I don't even know what health myths are. Are there myths?
Probably that alcohol is bad for you.
Yes.
I was devastated when I heard you can only have 3 drinks a week now.
I think it just keeps changing though.
It does keep changing. The research keeps going. They don't really know.
They're like, yes, no, don't do it. Do it. Drink more coffee. Drink red wine. Do it all.
Coffee too. Yeah. It's good for you 1 minute, bad for you the next.
Oh, that's too funny. If you could work with any athlete, past or present, who would it be?
Kelly Slater.
Oh, have you worked on him?
I wrote to him. No, I haven't worked on him. But I did write to him seeing if he needed a physio once.
Nice.
I just thought being on the surfing circuit would be cool.
I think that would be awesome. So Dom's husband was on the volleyball circuit and then she followed him around for like after she retired from snowboarding. I was like, I think we were in the wrong sport. Like, well, I would want to go to a beach.
I guess I should say Kai Lenny or one of those more, Kiahu Aberits or one of those more younger kind of cool athletes that now. But I mean, Kelly was, I guess, back in the day a bit. So it was a while ago, but I do remember writing. I never heard back.
I love that.
I guess he's probably inundated with physios. And back the other person back in the day would have been someone like Roger Federer. Like I think that would be classy to work with someone that amazing.
He has come up on this series a fair few times because I've been asking athletes about their role models and then also what other sport they would do, and they were like tennis. Roger Federer. I'm like, what a legend is he?
Well, how to be so good at your sport, but also so full of grace.
Yeah. Like I feel like he does nothing wrong.
No.
Roger, shout out. Come hang out with us.
Exactly.
Okay, last question of the rapid fire that is never rapid. Thank you so much. What is the best part of being a physiotherapist?
Getting to work with crazy, amazing athletes like you, Mercedes. I think being able to help people and having the ability to communicate and help people with their goals, with their performance goals, and get better at their physical challenges and seeing the successes.
Right.
Yeah.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
No, that makes sense. And it's so funny. I just want to, for people that have never gone to physio or like, I know a lot of people have been injured and maybe they don't know what the best steps are to take next. Like normal people would go to their doctors, right? You go to your doctor first. But me and Whistler being an athlete, I'm like, I'm going to go to Bianca first because Bianca knows everything. And I was so grateful to you a long time ago, 2014, when I came back from the Olympics. And and I was super concussed and I wasn't really taken care of properly by our team doctor. And I came home to you and I parked my car in Marketplace. And I've told this story on the podcast before. And I saw you and you were like, you're a mess. And I was like, okay, at least someone's being honest with me.
I think I saw you in the bathroom once at an event and you'd burst into tears.
Yeah.
Too, which is a common thing to do after a concussion.
Yeah. And so
you were speaking or something too.
Yeah, you took care of me and you told me everyone else that I needed to go see, and just kind of going above and beyond. And then I went to find my car and I couldn't find my car and I was like, oh, she's right, I'm not okay. Oh. So you are a legend. Like you really are a legend in Whistler. And I just want to kind of scrape the surface of how many different athletes you've worked with over the years. Like you were with the Australia team forever. You took Tora Bright. You took care of her for so long from like a very young age as well.
Yeah, I think she was about 15 when I met her first.
Yeah. And so is there any like standout moments for you at the was it the Olympics or is it just like traveling with a team that are like standout moments where you're like, wow, I really see that impact and how I had on the team?
One of them was, well, particularly with Australia, when I first started with their winter crew, I kind of actually, it was because I was living in Whistler and my dad gave me a bit of crap for the free scholarship I'd had at university and that I was kind of now treating Canadians and that I should actually give back. Yeah. Yeah. And come home and work. I think maybe it was his way of trying to get me home. But then I met just randomly, I think through Peter Judge, I'd worked a bit with the Canadian freestyle team when I first moved here. Just some of those athletes like John Smart, moguls, in that sort of genre era. And then I met the Australians somehow and their coach, and they'd moved to one of the Canadian coaches. And they were based in Whistler and they had no support. They had no history of any Olympic medals. And they had no money, much. They'd hired a coach and they were training in Whistler. And I thought, okay, you guys, like I can help you out with some time in the clinic. You know, I didn't expect to go on World Cup, but I mean, that inevitably happened. But I met, Jackie Cooper and Elisa Camplin and Nick Cleaver and a few of the mogul skiers for Australia. And just let them come into the clinic and gave them some free time. And then the next thing I knew, I was on World Cup. And then it turned around when Elisa won gold at 2002. And then she did turn around to the Olympic Committee in Australia, the powers that be, and she told them that the physio and having that constant care throughout the training and the injuries and the small little things you get as an athlete when you're pushing your bodies beyond where they really want to go. And then they funded the whole programs, and that's what started the snowboard program that Tora then became a legend with. And although she was doing well on her own too, but for Australia, funded a lot more programs: snowboard cross, half pipe snowboarding, even skeleton. So that gold medal helped start the fire, and now they've got tons of Olympic medals. I don't even know.
They really
program's
do.
Quite big. So being at the grassroots of that program, I know that I helped start that program. So when I see how well they're doing now, I'm like, okay.
I literally have goosebumps on my legs right now. I'm like, oh, that is so cool to see something.
It got recognition in Australia for winter sports, which didn't have any. They were right into swimming and tennis and those kind of summer sport things that they have, that they've always been good at.
Right.
But the winter sports didn't get much attention. And then after the 2010 games, opening back in action in Whistler, some of the local athletes that had done well in 2010 on the Canadian ski cross team, originally Canada Alpine wanted us to travel with them, but it was quite intense. But ski cross was a bit less intense. Plus Ashley McIver, Julia Murray, Davey Barr, Kelsey Serwa, they were all sort of Whistler locals. And so we thought that would be a good fit for our new clinic to work with them.
Totally.
And that was an amazing experience too. And our clinic's still working with ski cross, or Marielle too, and all of those younger athletes now.
Bunch of Whistler kids.
Going, yeah.
So awesome. Was that always a goal of yours, like when you went into school for physio?
Oh, this is funny. Okay, so it wasn't, no.
Okay.
But I did get into physio fairly young, because I came straight from school, and most the if anybody knows how it is getting into a physiotherapy program at a university, it's not easy.
Yeah.
So I was one of the lucky ones that managed to get there straight from school,
Mhm.
but I didn't have much of the maturity really required to, work with people at that point.
Right.
And I'd gotten out of the small town I'd grown up with, and I was in Melbourne. And anyway, a lot of my class were it's adults, and they had,
Right.
one guy, he was a ballerina for like, 10 years or
Cool.
something. And his frustration was that the physiotherapist didn't understand the range of motion that a ballerina has, and,
Right.
or a ballet dancer has, I guess, to be a bit more politically correct.
Nowadays.
But yeah, so he wanted to kind of train as a physio so that he could work with the ballet and do what they want. And then somebody else had a fruit and nut farm or something in the middle of Queensland, and another guy had been in the Navy for 15 years, and I just felt overwhelmed when these people knew why they wanted to be physiotherapists. They
Right.
knew, and I just couldn't think of much other than I wanted to escape the small town I grew up in. It sounded cool, and I had been a bit of an athlete myself when I was younger, and I thought the physio had a cool job. But then when it came around to talk, I said it really confidently, and it just popped into my head that I wanted to be the winter sports physio for Australia, and I wanted to go to the Olympics with the Australian team. And then I completely forgot about it until walking into that Olympic stadium in Salt Lake, which was the first one I went to. As I walked in, it flashed back that tutorial that I was sitting at, and my teammates in the tutorial were giving their little stories, and I said that. And I was like, oh my God, I made that somehow come true.
Amazing.
You get what you think you are, I think,
Wow.
sometimes.
Yeah.
But I didn't really connect it between the 20
Yeah.
years that went by, or 15 years, or whatever it was, the difference,
Wild.
from 19,
That is
89 to 2002.
that is a crazy story. So
10 years difference.
and then 3 Olympics with Australia. I mean, you work with so many amazing people. I mean, I just want to explain to the listeners, like, if I can't walk, I will go see Bianca, and then she can fix me like right away. You just know the body. Would you say that, like, over the course of all your training, and you're always learning more, like, how well
Never
do you
stops.
know the human body now from back when you started?
More intuitively now.
Okay.
Like, when I started, I would pay attention to the literature a lot, and I'd be like, okay, this glide happens in this direction and I need to push it this way.
Yeah.
And I would say now I forget a lot of that, and I just feel
Yeah.
a lot more. Like, I would say you get that with experience. I
Yeah.
think you can't really replace that experience. Yeah, I'm a lot more intuitive, and I do a lot more ad hoc things that I wouldn't say are techniques that you might learn in school or learn
Right.
from a guru. I incorporate everything I've learned from lots of gurus
Yeah.
in the past, there has been a lot of amazing. There's a lot of amazing therapists out there, and a lot of amazing researchers out there.
Yeah.
But yeah, I add them all up, and also your just experience of knowing what works. And
Yeah.
sometimes the science and what works are a bit of a brick wall in between them, and the scientific research and the principles, and you try to apply those as much as possible, but there is a element of art in there as well, and just intuition.
Yeah.
I would say.
Yeah, it's so crazy.
Yeah. And the person too. Every person.
I know, I was gonna ask
Yeah.
that. Like, because you work with elite athletes, I do wanna get into, like, what is the most common injury, but, I mean, every sport's different, so I'd love to get your take on that.
Yeah, and the two main groups I've worked with, or do continue almost to work with, are the winter sports, obviously, your skiers, your snowboarders, and but the other group, which was interesting, and it was really different, and I did get caught out a bit when I started working with them, was I worked with elite level triathletes, both for Australia, the Australian Institute of Sport, and later with Triathlon Canada, with actually local Kirsten Sweetland, she's a Whistler athlete.
Yeah.
And anyway, leading up to the Beijing and also the London and Rio games, and those Yeah, the difference between those was really night and day. Like, for example, you could play around with the feet, speaking of back to my foot
Yeah.
fetish, of a snowboarder. You can whack wedges under their feet to get their alignment to change. You can
Right.
cant things. You can
Mhm.
and with skiers too, you can put things but don't do that to a triathlete, because if they get a blister, it turns into an ulcer and their sport is,
Things
their
I would never
season
think
is ruined.
about.
So you can't make big changes. You have to be very careful about what you do to a foot of a triathlete.
Oh,
Whereas you can mess
interesting.
around a lot with a skier and a snowboarder and get away with it. For example, and then
Wow.
just the endurance athlete versus the more robust skier, snowboarder that crashes all the time, and
Yeah.
you're dealing with high speed impact injuries as
Mhm.
opposed to long training little injuries
Yeah.
but no major stuff, but lots of little stuff.
Yeah, that is like black and white, like
Mhm.
completely different for sure.
And triathletes can get sick too if you take them to the wrong restaurant or you can't cook at home. And whereas a snowboarder can eat anything, really,
I'm pretty
anything, or
sure we
smoke
do.
anything. Well, not someone should say that, but they have in the past.
It has been known.
No, it has been known.
Okay. With snowboarders, what injuries would you see the most? Like, is it knees? Why I don't know why
Yeah,
knees always become a thing.
knees and shoulders, I would
Yeah.
say, are common, but also sort of spinal stuff. The more kind of maintenance injuries with snowboarders would be because of their alignment and
Mhm.
there's
Always one way.
yeah, they're always one way unless they're riding switch a lot.
Yeah.
But yeah, the imbalances in the spine and the mechanical kind of compensations for that are the more kind of slower things they get. But then the high speed injuries, yeah, knees are a lot, and
Concussions.
ankles, concussions would be probably one of the top things. Yeah,
Yeah.
with snowers and with snowboarders and with freestyle skiers
Mhm.
as well.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And how like what would be like I just want to touch on like the injuries and then the recovery, and you are like the recovery, but then also the wellness that comes with the recovery. Like
Hmm.
what would be the best answer? Like Chris and I were talking on the last episode about
Yeah.
like how
He's
you
had a
guys
few
are
injuries.
yeah, how you guys are
I'm
like
sure he told you about
magicians. The butt.
the spearing.
The
Oh, the
butt?
butt.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. That was like the first thing I was like, we need to talk about the butt. Yeah, huge scar on his butt.
Oh, he got
um,
impaled. Oh,
yeah, yeah,
yes.
yeah,
I don't know if I saw that one, but yeah, I know about it. Yeah.
yeah. Well, now everyone knows about it. um, when they're like, we call you magicians because you just, as I said earlier, you know the body so well. What would be the best? Like, is it what's the most holistic way to go about recovering from an injury? Is it like getting to physio? Is there anything else that you recommend, like movement or?
Yeah. Well, that's a good question. I mean, recovery, the the specific physiotherapy is obviously, of course we know how to do that, but it's a whole person, and athletes are often wanting to push the buttons faster and get back
Mhm,
faster than maybe their body wants to do.
mhm.
And they are also capable of mind over matter a lot more than the average person in general. I would say most
Okay.
athletes will push their body and their mind
Mhm.
beyond uh, beyond that of the average person, for sure.
Right.
And so it's often that whole encompassing mental performance. Wellness covers more the whole person, the holistic approach, like
Yeah.
working with the coach, working with the teammates, working with the mental performance coaches, nutrition, recovery, such as ice baths and swimming and gentle cycling, and just keeping those injuries on the road under control. And
Yeah.
also, but as far as a major injury goes, I mean, it's the whole team really that gets involved.
Mhm.
But often it is, trying to kind of coach them how to stay back and how to pace it for the longevity of their
Right.
entire
Like
health, rather than just whatever competition they've got coming up. And that can be a real challenge because often, there's a lot of driving forces.
yeah.
Sometimes the driving forces can come from outside too, like the
Mhm.
the sport body or the coach, particularly if it's an athlete that's likely to do well.
Mhm. They want you
Um,
back out there, but your
mhm.
body might be saying, "I'm not ready
I'm
yet."
not
But
ready.
your head is like, I want to be out there.
Mhm.
And then you just got to learn the act of patience, which is something that I unfortunately learned way too many times in my
Yeah.
recovery. But it is like, it is super interesting. So my friend Roberta had a traumatic brain injury. She got hit by a truck in Encinitas, and
Ooh.
she's recovering still. She's walking and talking, which is like a miracle. But we had this conversation about how like it is different. It's kind of what you just talked about, being like an elite athlete. We really want to get back to what
Mhm.
we love and what we
Mhm.
do.
Mhm.
And an injury, say, maybe that happened in an office, is a little bit different.
Yeah.
Whereas you're like, do I really want to get back to work? Like, where's that where's that drive? Like, is that
Yeah.
do you, because you also work with like not elite athletes.
Mhm.
And so do you see a difference in the like comeback?
Well, in Whistler,
Yeah,
sometimes
we're
people are just, I mean, I've had 80-year-olds that,
yeah,
what do you mean I can't ski every day? Um,
we're
I
a
think
different
there's a
entity
lot of
here.
people who want to be, if not, and the recreational athletes can be just as motivated as the elite athletes
Yeah,
sometimes.
yeah, yeah.
But yeah, I mean, definitely. I mean, some athletes were flashing into my head as you were saying that, and some situations were flashing into my head. It's a whole thing, but that mental, I mean, if it, from a devastating injury or a large injury, often that athlete, their competitive edge can be lost because they've got the memory of this injury that the
Yeah.
next person in the start gate doesn't have, right? So
Mhm.
so it is important for them to be really back and recovered
Yeah.
in terms, mentally and physically, if they're going to have a chance of not re-injuring and
Yeah.
having a successful performance.
Yeah.
Um, but yeah, I mean, all those little recovery things, all those little kind of, or everything with the whole team,
Mhm.
it's really important
It
just to
is.
kind of
Yeah.
nurture them through, really, and achieve the goals, and also injury prevention. I just remember, yeah, a flashing thing about an athlete that was getting really frustrated with a triple twisty thing that they were trying to do off a jump.
Mhm.
And the coach was kind of pushing them forward a bit or giving them advice, and
Mhm.
they wanted to keep going. And I could see it just was, I was almost a premonition I had. I'm like, oh my God, if we don't stop now,
Right.
then they're getting so frustrated that they're going to crash, and they get the next jump will be an
Bit
injury.
devastating, yeah.
And I went to radio the coach, and then I didn't get through, and then the next thing, that athlete got injured. And so the
Yeah.
next time I was like, okay, I'm going to tell you,
You're gonna
if I
speak
see
up.
them getting frustrated, if
Yeah.
I see them getting, because that, you get into a mental kind of state when you
Mhm.
train. This is just a training session.
Yeah.
Um, just things like that, like preventing the injuries
Yeah.
and pacing the training and not overtraining, can be a really big factor.
Right.
But I mean, the everyday people are, I mean, generally a bit more sensible, mostly, I would say.
That's a good way to
Yeah,
put
they're
it.
willing to take a step back and recover
It's
for
sensible.
longer.
I mean, that's
But
true.
not all,
Yeah, yeah,
not
yeah.
in this town.
I do wanna touch on, like, when do you know, like, Chris and I were talking about, like, just having that trust with your magical person,
Mhm.
physio, osteo, whoever it may be, having that great relationship. And we talked about like the physios being like, yeah, you're good. You're like it's gonna go well today for you. Your
Yeah,
body is fine.
yeah.
Like, do you from your side of it, are you like knowing you're instilling confidence in the athletes by saying that? Or is this just like part of your repertoire? You're like, no, your body's actually like a finely tuned machine and you're good to go.
I think so. Yeah. And I do remember, I think yeah, definitely, you are. And I think it's important to communicate that too. But
Yeah.
it's also important to build that relationship in the first place and get the trust. And when you start
Mhm.
working, if you're working with a team, you've got several different personalities usually on that team.
Yeah.
And they don't always get along.
Yeah.
But and some you might, I think from my perspective, like especially if that'll and also like when you're working with athletes in the resort, like here or in dry land or in behind the scenes or out of this competition season, that's different. They're more like the regular people, but they're just a little bit more driven, and obviously they're training a lot harder. But when they're in competition, especially a big competition such as Olympics or a World Championships, they're a different animal. They're definitely a lot more stressed, a lot more highly strung, and I think you've got to chill out and just be calm. Try and be their rock. Because you sometimes are a bit their sounding board, because what goes
sometimes
we call it the dome of the physio dome of silence,
like all the time. Like you guys know all the gossip, everything that's happening, because you're like
bitch about their coach or their teammates, and we're not going to say anything.
You're kind of like the therapist as well.
A little bit. You end up, they don't have access always to their their sports person.
You are
their
the
psychology.
The sounding board for sure. But that, again, that builds that trust. And a lot of I feel like I had such great relationships with the physios that were on the road with us. Like I would consider them family in a sense. Like it is a different.
You are a bit of a family. You're close. And they call the physio for anything. Like if there's no doctor around, you could be looking for the morning of the pill or some kind of like weird thing that is nothing up your alley, and it's like, okay, well, it's just part of it. But one incident came to mind with an athlete that we'd had World Championships, and they had crashed and done quite a nasty kind of back injury, but it wasn't a devastating injury that was going to keep them out forever, but it was a lot of bruising and swelling, and we were working 4 hours a day of physio and recovery and trying to get them ready, because the next week was the next week there was another Olympic qualifier World Cup, like a week later. Or maybe it was 10 days later, but it wasn't a lot later. And I just remember that athlete in the start gate just looking at me a bit unsure of themselves, and saying, because you end up being the start gate reeling, helping the coaches out, relaying stuff, and saying, do you think I should hang back and let them go and then just see if I can overtake?
Right.
And I was like, my instinct was like, no, because that's more likely to get you injured. Like, get out of there in ahead.
Yeah.
And I pulled the coach over, because this wasn't my decision.
Yeah.
And the coach, and I said, what do you think about this? And the coach just went, no, get out of there as fast as possible. Get in front. And she did that and won.
Love it.
But it was like, oh my goodness, this athlete's unsure of herself. She's not sure her body's right. And I'm like, yep, you're good to go. But it was a bit touch and go. We'd been working, around the clock to try and kind of achieve the impossible. And this person wasn't maybe fully recovered, but wanted to compete and was fit enough to compete. But just that little bit of, I'm not sure was in her mind. Yeah.
It is so important. And like you just said, you're like, sometimes we're in the start gate. Give an idea. You're in the start gate. You're in the hotel working on athletes at the end of the day, sometimes all day. You're everywhere when you're on the road with the athletes. Are you still on the road?
Not much now. I've done a couple of private contracts with, I did one before the last Olympics with a snowboarder, just one athlete. And just the odd kind of thing, but generally not on the road now. Just here in Whistler. If whoever wants to come and see me, really.
Yeah.
Do
you miss the traveling, or that was like
I have flashes of missing it.
Okay.
Yeah. I have flashes of missing it. It was great, but I did it for a long time, and I did a lot of it, and I'm happy to let some of the other guys go and have that experience.
For sure.
And I'm grateful for the experiences I had. But I can tell you, when you've got an athlete up there on the podium, if you're looking after a whole team, you're not on the podium with the athlete or anywhere near the podium. You were in the hospital with the one that didn't quite make it.
Yes. This is such fact.
Man. But having said that, I've seen a few on the podium, which has been good.
Yeah. What a wild ride. Is there anywhere, like, you traveled the world pretty much? Is there anywhere that, like, I don't know, this is like a question someone would ask. It's like random, like, for winter sports. Is there a favorite, like, winter place that you've traveled to? I always say Japan, because I always thought that was so great.
I never traveled there with the team. I only went there skiing with friends.
On your own?
Yeah.
Well, that's pretty sweet too.
Yeah, we did go to China though, right up in the north near Mongolia. This place called Longzhou.
Okay.
And it was like 3 hours out of Harbin. Harbin was a cool city. It had these amazing ice statues. and
Okay.
like ice kind of carvings, like
Yeah,
whole
yeah.
cities of ice that they were carving, and it was
Wow.
insane.
China.
But I wouldn't go. I wouldn't necessarily, want to return. I would say like Verbier area in the Alps.
Europe.
It was so beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the Dolomites.
Oh, you've been there.
Yeah, I did one
Nice.
alpine trip to Cortina, and I did trip with the freestyle skiers to Madonna. Both of those places are amazing.
I missed Madonna. Dom went, but
It
I
was
wasn't there yet.
beautiful.
Yeah, that sounded
Yeah.
amazing.
Oh yeah, Dom, snowboard team. Yeah.
Yeah. Wild.
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
Cool.
Very awesome. Well, I mean, I could ask you questions all day, but thank you so much for dropping in. Is there anything else that we should touch on about injuries, recovery, wellness that we want the world to know?
I mean, just looking after yourself and being careful with your injuries.
Mhm.
Don't overestimate your body, and listen to your body, and
Mhm.
do all the right things to recover from even the smallest injuries, and then they won't get into big injuries. And also keeping yourself strong, biomechanically aligned. Doing the best you can to keep your body in good shape.
Mhm.
Strength and flexibility. It's
Yeah.
not rocket science, but a lot of people don't do it.
I know.
Even our ski instructors that sit on the couch all summer and then
Go out
and then
think
work
that they
30
can
days in a row with their favorite clients that keep
Yeah.
coming in.
Yeah. 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 I know.
And their recovery is nachos in the bar.
It's not gonna work. It's
No.
not gonna work.
No.
I can attest to listening to my body and like pretend I always do this. I like pretend like it's gonna somehow fix itself or it's gonna go away. And then I literally can't turn my neck. I'm like, Bianca, I can't move. So
luckily those things are fairly easy to fix.
I know. You gotta do
I think
all
dealing
those
with injuries
things.
earlier too, like, a lot of
Mhm.
people, not so much athletes, but a lot of people who don't have access that easily to physiotherapists and to other
Mhm.
professionals, do tend to put things on the wayside.
For
Oh, it'll
sure.
be better by itself, or it'll be fine, or I
Yeah.
didn't need that. And
Yeah.
males are worse than females, I would say, overall for doing that. And they, then it's too late. I see injuries that I should have seen 10 years ago, like that are
yeah.
now so stiff and so, so sore. And over the pandemic too, when we couldn't see people post surgery,
Yeah.
people got stiff, and you can't always get that mobility back.
Mhm.
I think it becomes a point where it won't come back.
Oh my gosh, really?
Yeah.
You're just that okay, well, yeah,
Yeah.
keep moving, people, keep moving. Well,
Okay.
Bianca, thank you so much for dropping in today.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking care of my whole family who goes to see you. I appreciate that so much.
Thanks for your amazing podcast. This has been fun.
Oh, awesome. So you guys can all find Bianca at Back in Action, which is in Whistler, British Columbia, Canada. So come visit. Today. You can find everything you want to know about Dropping In with Mercedes at droppinginwithmercedes.com. Don't forget to subscribe on Apple, Spotify, and YouTube. Thanks DJ Kenosis for the music and my mom for the intro voice.